Joined by head coach Mike Clark of Bridgewater College football. They're in a tie for second in this year's preseason poll. Coach, let's talk about that right there, the logjam we see there at number 2, and it all started with, last season. Let's have a last season view of this. 4 teams tied at 5-2 in the league standings going after the regular season. We need to go into tiebreakers to figure out who's going to go to the NCAA tournament. Talk about what we saw last season at the top of the standings with all those teams that were right up there and a couple more that could have stolen the game any way they wanted to.
Well, I think, if my memory serves me correct, when we met last August, we discussed a lot of the same issues. I think there's a lot of balance in the league. I don't know if there's a great team or a national power in the ODAC right now, but there's not a bad team. Really, from top to bottom, you got to line up and be prepared to play every day, and certainly in a game that a hot player at the right time, an injury at the wrong time can really kind of determine who wins and loses. And I think we anticipated that. I don't know, a year ago we were at the lower end of the log jam, and we changed some things and upped ourselves. But I think you have to be real careful with what somebody says about you in the preseason in this league.
Well, then let's take a look at what you've actually done on the field. Getting to 5 wins last year is the first time you've been that high in several seasons. Talk a little bit about the growth of your squad last year from where you thought they were in the preseason to what they turned out to be on the field, and where you see them coming into this year.
Well, I think we got good quarterback play. We had 2 kids, Matt Preseason and Ross Rushing, that were inexperienced going into the season, and both of them, when we asked them to, played at a high level. I think it's a quarterback-centric game at all levels. I think the other thing that impacted us is we played a lot of close games. I mean, if you really went back and looked at our schedule, that we had 6 games that were decided in the last 4 minutes, and we won 5 of them. So it was one of those years that we were blessed to be an 8-2 team. We were close to being a 4-6 team too, and we have to anticipate the same type of challenges on a week-to-week basis. I do think winning a couple of those close games early. We won our first game against Gettysburg with our 2-minute offense, and then batting a pass down at the end of the game, on the goal line against them to win it. I think our kids mentally, got into close games in the fourth quarter and really weren't looking over their shoulder. We're kind of looking forward and saying, hey, I've been there, I've done this, and it was just one of those nice years that kind of played out. I think towards the end of the season, I really thought we were playing as strong as anybody in the league those last 3 or 4 games down the stretch. And but the key thing is this year is you got to kind of sustain it, and and you can't have that off day, because when there's a lot of balance, one off day could decide, a tiebreaker, and certainly it did that to us last year.
Well, you mentioned you got good quarterback play, and both of those gentlemen are back this year. You're expecting either the same or one of them to break out, but one of the spots where you're going to have a new face, or at least a new primary face, is that running back with Jacob Wright doing what he did last year, having a really consistent, great season for you. Who do you expect to step in, or several players, who do you expect to step in and help you out?
Well, I think there's a batch of kids that we get to look at. A year ago, Jacob Wright took up the challenge. He was a 204 pounds strong, tremendously conditioned back, and he more or less let us know that, Coach Clark, I need to be in there in the fourth quarter. You give me the ball 25 times, I'll be better 20 through 25 than I am 1 through 5, and that's what he was. As I mentioned earlier, we're in so many close games, there really wasn't a window for somebody to step up. So their name's out there right now. My hope is one of them is hopefully a talented kid. I think the other thing we have going for us that is not discussed a lot, it's that hidden entity. I think our offensive line has a chance to be pretty good. We have people returning. We're going to be a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger than we've been in the past across the offensive front, and certainly when you're going to be new at the running back position. If you can get control of that line of scrimmage, who's ever toting the ball hopefully will look a little bit faster.
Well, you talk about the line of scrimmage as well, and you're prepared to do that, control the line of scrimmage on the defensive side. You've got a couple all-conference guys back in with Nicholas Cawthon and Logan Whitaker, who were, I believe, second-teamers last season. They're coming back to be at least stabilizing forces on your defensive line. What else do you see from the front end of your defense coming into this season?
I think it's very similar to our offense. I think it could be one of our stronger groups. We've got the size, we've got a little bit of experience, and certainly the 2 kids you mentioned, Logan Whitaker and Nick Cawthon really have had great off seasons, and they're 15 to 18 pounds heavier than they were a year ago, and moving their feet and doing the same thing. So you really hope that they kind of elevate people. I think our defensive breakdown would be we're pretty good across the front, even though we lose a couple very good players, in the secondary and what we call our umbrella in the 4-2-5 scheme. Much like the tailback position, we're going to be reloading. We have talented people coming in to try to replace them. They don't have not experienced people, but they are talented people. The key thing for us defensively is we're going to have to get 2 linebackers to step up. My hope is that even though we might have inexperienced kids there, we're going to have them sandwiched in between a front that's pretty salty and a secondary that allows us to take some risk. Had a lot of staff turnover on the defensive side of the ball. We've been a very stable group, and three out of 4 coaches are new. A couple of them I had to hire in the summer, and a coach never wants to do that. So it's been kind of coach and gel on the fly. But I've always thought it's a game about players, not plans. And my hope is I brought in experienced enough people. They're going to be able to ID the players and then move plans to let those kids' talents shine.
Let's talk a little bit about defensive philosophy in the ODAC, because we've got some teams that throw a lot, some teams that are balanced, some teams that run a lot, and then there's one team that's very unique and runs just about all the time, being Washington Elite. How difficult is it to go from one playing defense against one offense to the next, and what you guys have to do? And do you think your defense is variable enough to be able to handle that this year and maybe make that next step up to a 6-win season this year, or 7 wins?
Well, I think I remember a year ago somebody asked me, what's your defensive philosophy? And I was accurate when I answered them. I said, what week is it? And you're right. I think Randolph-Macon plays like Wisconsin. They're going to be big. They're going to try to power you. W&L is what they do with their option game. It's much more complex than what Georgia Tech and Navy does with theirs. And I've studied them all. I think he's kind of cutting edge, with how they play. And you're right that we're all across the board. And Shenandoah is going to play fast break offense to you. So it varies from week to week. Years ago, that was one of the reasons we kind of morphed into that 4-2-5, so we could kind of get those hybrid type players. A rover that can be a secondary guy when he needs to, but can be a linebacker when he needs to, a free safety that can be a corner when he needs to, and it's what we've kind of morphed into. It's tough to play matchup football on defense anymore because of the way people can change pace on you, the way they pace the game and the way it goes and the way no-huddle offenses are run. But it certainly is a challenge for the defensive people in the league, but it's not just my team that has to deal with that. It's everybody's defense. And ultimately, I think it's going to come down to your players. I think it's going to come down to what they're able to do. And you play talented people, and you eventually on defense, you just got to keep them in front of you and tackle them.
Let's talk a little bit as we finish up here, just kind of an overview of where we are with the conference this season. We've got Guilford on paper separating themselves out with the top of the poll, but then there's their 3-team logjam at number 2, but still the teams even lower in the poll are bringing back talent. I look at Shenandoah's got 7 all-conference kids coming back. So talk a little bit about what you see quickly from the league this season.
Oh, you see that. I saw Shenandoah beat Guilford last year on film, and then certainly W&L late in the season put up 400 yards rushing in game 10, if I'm not mistaken. And teams that were at the quote 3-7, I had to make plays in the fourth quarter to beat them at 8-2. So I don't get into the records too much. I think anytime, in Guilford's case, when you got a quarterback, and when you look at his statistics, that's off the chart statistics. And I saw his 3 interceptions. It was the game they lost against Shenandoah, and one of them was just an outstanding play by a defensive back, and one of them was a desperation play at the end of the game when they were down by 10. So, as you look back on it, here's a kid threw 38 touchdowns and had one bad throw that was a pick. And so I think that will always give you a chance, but you got to play it out. You really have to play it out. And I think at this level, with the type of kid that we get, it's going to be the team that can concentrate. What things do you don't control health. Sometimes it happens, injuries, sometimes it doesn't. But I think it's going to be the team that's going to be able to concentrate and keep their focus and not have that off week. Because as I mentioned to you earlier, we had Emory and Henry came in and played a very good game against us, but that was the one time I thought I put a team on the field that wasn't ready to play, and I wasn't able to play catch up. And we're down at Guilford. I had 4th and 1 at the 4. I was down by a touchdown, and we had to count on a measurement. So it's going to be, those are the margins we're dealing with, and we kind of accept those. It's kind of exciting, and we've been there before. So in Division III, you do a lot of things on the peripheral that get you to this point where you get to go out and play games, and certainly the next 4 months it's the times we enjoy the most, and I look forward to the challenges that the season brings.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you for joining me today, and good luck this season.
Thank you.